Judge Halbrook's gavel strikes with finality. The sound reverberates through courtroom 4B like a thunderclap, and my stomach clenches as if bracing for impact. Across the polished oak table, my father Gregory leans toward his attorney Mark Delaney. They whisper, but I catch the flash of triumph in his eyes. My father's mouth curves into a smile so slight that anyone else might miss it. The court requires additional time to review the medical records, Judge Halbrook announces, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses. Motion granted for a 30-day continuance. I press my palms flat against my thighs to hide their trembling. 8 months since pancreatic cancer took Mom, and I'm still fighting for the modest inheritance she left me. Just $85, 0 inches savings, her 2-bedroom townhouse in Tacoma, with its faded blue shutters and an antique oak chest that's been in her family for generations. The chest she specifically mentioned in her will, the chest my father seems particularly determined to claim. Your Honor, we request additional time to review Mrs. Hale's medical records, my father says, his voice dripping with practiced concern. We have reason to believe her condition may have impacted her testamentary capacity. My father stands tall in his tailored charcoal suit, every silver hair perfectly in place. At 58, he commands the courtroom with the same authority he's wielded throughout his career as a corporate tax attorney. I wonder if anyone else notices how his concerned expression never quite reaches his eyes. Dana Ortiz, my attorney and former law school friend, squeezes my hand under the table. Don't let him see he's getting to you, she whispers, barely moving her lips. My mind races back to when I was 15, Mom crying in the kitchen after finding lipstick on Dad's collar, the shouting matches that followed. Then Dad's announcement over our Sunday dinner he was leaving us for Sloane Carter, the blonde paralegal from his firm. Their 17-year marriage discarded like yesterday's newspaper. Mom, who gave up her career to support his ambitions, was left to rebuild her life from scratch. She took a part-time position at the local library while Dad moved into a waterfront condo with Sloane. He thrived professionally, making partner within 2 years, while Mom stretched every dollar to put me through college. This is the third continuance, Dana notes, her voice firm but controlled. The medical records have been thoroughly reviewed by 3 separate physicians who all confirmed Mrs. Hale's mental competency at the time the will was executed. Judge Halbrook barely glances at Dana before responding. Mrs. Hale's condition was complex. These matters require thorough examination. That's when I notice the pattern. 6 hearings over 4 months, and Judge Halbrook has ruled in my father's favor every single time. His rulings consistently delay, obstruct, and undermine my mother's clearly stated wishes. I rise from my chair, my heartbeat thundering in my ears. Your Honor, we've already provided complete medical records from Mom's oncologist, her primary care doctor, and the hospital. There's nothing more to review. My father turns toward me, his expression a perfect mixture of pity and concern. My daughter is understandably emotional about her mother's passing, he says smoothly. This has been difficult for all of us. The patronizing tone makes my blood boil. I'm not his emotional daughter, I'm a public defender with 5 years of courtroom experience. Judge Halbrook peers at me over his glasses. I understand your frustration, Miss Walker, but these matters require thorough examination. Your father has legitimate concerns that must be addressed. Behind his judicial facade, I catch something familiar in Halbrook's expression, the same calculated assessment I've seen in my father's eyes countless times. We'll reconvene on October 12th, the judge continues. Court is adjourned. Dana gathers her documents, leaning close. Document every irregular ruling, she murmurs. We're building an appeal. Something isn't right here. I nod, watching my father shake hands with his attorney. If Gregory succeeds, I lose not only Mom's modest savings and the home she worked so hard to keep, but also her final dignity, her right to decide what happened to her belongings after her death. Outside, the September afternoon is unseasonably warm. The courthouse steps are crowded with people moving between hearings, oblivious to the knot of anger burning in my chest. This isn't normal procedure, Nalani Dana says as we walk toward the parking lot. Her brown eyes narrow as she taps her phone screen. I've been doing probate work for 7 years. Judges don't typically grant multiple continuances on medical capacity when there's this much documentation. So, what do we do, I ask, unlocking my car door. Halbrook isn't listening to reason. Dana leans against my car. Keep documenting everything. I'll draft a motion to address the pattern of delays, but honestly, we need to prepare for... My phone buzzes, interrupting her. Unknown number. Nalini Walker, I answer professionally. Miss Walker, my name is Ruth Bennett, a woman's voice says, clear and direct. I knew your mother from years ago. I found out about the case from a friend who works at the courthouse. I glance at Dana, who raises an eyebrow. What can I help you with, Miss Bennett? I ask cautiously. Not over the phone, she says, her voice dropping slightly. Your mother kept things from that time, things that matter, things about your father and about Judge Halbrook. My breath catches. We should meet in person, Ruth says. Tomorrow morning at Westlake Coffee on 4th Avenue, 9 o'clock. After agreeing to the meeting, I end the call and relay the conversation to Dana. This could be nothing, Dana warns, or it could be exactly what we need. Either way, I'm coming with you. As we part ways, I sit in my car watching my father emerge from the courthouse, phone pressed to his ear, laughing at something. The sight of his carefree demeanor ignites something deep inside me. My mother deserved better than this, I whisper to myself, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turn white. I won't let them erase her. For the first time since this battle began, I feel something beyond grief and frustration. A spark of determination ignites as I realize this isn't just about an inheritance anymore. It's about justice for Mom, and for every sacrifice she made that allowed Gregory Walker to become the powerful man who now seeks to diminish her final act of independence. The early morning light casts long shadows across Westlake Coffee's weathered oak tables. I arrive 15 minutes early, positioning myself in the corner booth with a clear view of both entrances. Old habits from my public defender days always secure the best vantage point, always be prepared for surprises. You look just like your mother, a voice says. I glance up to find a woman in her early 60s standing by my table. Her silver hair is pulled back in a practical bun, and she wears a tailored navy pantsuit that speaks of government service. Something in her posture, spine straight, shoulders squared, signals military background before she says a word. Ruth Bennett, I ask, extending my hand. She nods, sliding into the booth across from me. I ordered us both coffee. Black, if that's all right. Dana arrives moments later, introducing herself as my attorney. Ruth studies her briefly before nodding with approval. I'll be direct, Ruth says after the server delivers our coffees. She places her cup down without drinking. Your mother was USAF Signals Intelligence in the late 90s, assigned to Operation Blue Harbor. Not many people know this. She worked communications encryption while completing her library science degree at night. The revelation hits like a physical blow. My mother, the quiet librarian who alphabetized her spice rack and read mystery novels, was military intelligence. What exactly was Operation Blue Harbor? Dana asks, her legal pad already out. Ruth glances around the cafe before leaning forward. Officially, it monitored foreign communications that might indicate threats to military installations. Unofficially, its scope expanded well beyond its mandate. She takes a careful sip of coffee. Your father and Judge Halbrook both served as young legal advisors on the project. That's where they formed their connection. My stomach tightens. What are you saying? They expanded surveillance beyond legal targets, used the information they gathered for influence and advancement. Ruth's voice drops further. Your father has been using his legal connections to manipulate outcomes since before your parents divorced. Judge Halbrook's assignment to your probate case wasn't coincidence, it was orchestrated. The coffee turns bitter in my mouth. You're telling me my father has been using military connections to stack the legal system against my mother for decades? Ruth nods, her face grim. There was a civilian activist whose death was written off as an accident, Jamie Winters, started asking too many questions about domestic surveillance. Your mother knew him. How can I verify what you're telling me? I ask, years of courtroom skepticism kicking in. Winter Lantern, Ruth says without hesitation. That was our internal verification phrase. Ask your father about it, watch his reaction. Dana scribbles furiously in her notepad. This changes everything about our approach to the case. I stare into my coffee, trying to reconcile this information with the mother I thought I knew. The woman who taught me to bake snickerdoodles and helped me memorize state capitals was involved in military intelligence, and my father, had he been threatening her all these years? Was my mother being blackmailed to stay silent? I ask, my voice barely audible. Ruth's expression softens. Your mother made her choices to protect you. Her quiet resilience wasn't weakness, it was a shield. Memories surface with painful clarity, Mom's cryptic warnings about powerful men and how they protect their own, her insistence that I understand the law from the inside, the way she flinched whenever my father's name appeared in the newspaper after his latest corporate tax victory. I need evidence, I say, professional instincts taking over, not just hearsay from my mother's old colleague, no offense. None taken, Ruth replies with the hint of a smile. Your mother expected you'd say exactly that. My public defender mindset shifts into investigative mode. This isn't just about an inheritance anymore, it's about exposing a conspiracy that spans decades. The oak chest, I whisper, sudden understanding dawning. Mom specifically mentioned it in her will. Dana looks up from her notes. Gregory's attorney has been fixated on getting that chest since day one of litigation. I thought it was just about the appraised value. Your father isn't motivated by greed, Ruth confirms. It's fear. Gregory's legal reputation and partnership would collapse if his past misdeeds were exposed. And Halbrook's judicial appointment would be immediately jeopardized by any connection to Operation Blue Harbor. Dana closes her notebook with a decisive snap. These men have everything to lose. That makes them dangerous. What exactly does the chest contain, I ask. Ruth shakes her head. Your mother never told me specifically. She compartmentalized information standard practice in signals work. I finish my coffee, my mind racing through possibilities. Whatever documentation Mom left, it must be damning enough to make two powerful men risk their professional standing to obtain it. I'm clearing my calendar, Dana says, already typing on her phone. This isn't just probate anymore. Ruth reaches across the table, her hand surprisingly warm on mine. I can help interpret any documents you find. Military terminology can be deliberately obscure. I've also contacted Colin Mercer, Ruth continues, retired major who supervised parts of the operation. He's willing to corroborate if you find concrete evidence. The realization washes over me with startling clarity. Mom built this safety net before she died. She knew they'd come after her things. Dana nods, her expression serious. Your mother was playing a very long game, and she positioned you to finish it. I straighten my shoulders, feeling a sense of purpose replace my earlier shock. My mother wasn't just the quiet woman who retreated into books after my father's betrayal. She was strategic, patient, and infinitely braver than I ever understood. Let's get to that chest, I say, placing my cup down with newfound determination. It's time to see what my father is so afraid of. Ruth's eyes meet mine with professional appreciation. Your mother would be proud of you, Nalani. She always said you had the perfect combination of her patience and your father's tactical mind without his moral compromises. As we leave the cafe, I feel my perspective shifting. The world looks different now, filled with hidden connections and secret histories I never suspected. But for the first time since this battle began, I feel something beyond anger and grief. I feel ready. Later that day, the antique oak chest sits in the center of my living room, its ornate carvings catching the afternoon light. I run my fingers over the intricate pattern of rose blossoms that adorns the lid, remembering how my mother would polish this wood every Sunday afternoon while humming old Patsy Cline songs. A birthday card from my 25th birthday lies open on the coffee table. I found it tucked between the pages of Mom's favorite Barbara Kingsolver novel last night. Her elegant handwriting curves across the inside. Always remember to look beneath the roses, sweetheart. That's where the real treasures hide. 4 years I've had this card. 4 years without understanding what she meant. It has to be here, I mutter, examining the chest for the 100th time. My fingers trace each carved rose, pressing gently against the wood grain. Near the back right corner, one of the blossoms feels different, slightly raised compared to the others. I press firmly on the center of the flower, then gasp when it gives way with a soft click. A small panel slides open, revealing a hidden compartment no bigger than a paperback book. You clever woman, I whisper, tears stinging my eyes. Inside lies a leather-bound journal and a manila envelope. My hands tremble as I open the envelope first. Black and white photographs spill onto my lap, military personnel in uniform standing beside surveillance equipment. I recognize my father, immediately younger but unmistakable, standing next to a man I now know as Judge Halbrook. Both wear the insignia of JAG officers. The journal's first page bears my mother's precise handwriting, Operation Blue Harbor classified documentation. My phone rings. Dana. I found something, I tell her without preamble. Mom left evidence. Hard evidence. Don't tell me more over the phone, Dana says. I'll be there in 20. While waiting, I flip through the journal pages, each entry meticulously dated and initialed. The 17th of July, 1998. Today, G&E authorized surveillance on Senator Gardner's daughter. Not a legitimate target. When I questioned the order, G said sometimes pressure needed to be applied through alternative channels. The Defense Appropriations Bill vote is next week. My stomach clenches as I continue reading. The 8th of September 1998. Civilian activist Jamie Winters threatening to go public with information about domestic surveillance. G. said it would be handled. 3 days later, Winters died in what police ruled a single-vehicle accident. The 22nd of October 1998, G received unexpected promotion today. Coincides with conclusion of Gardner surveillance. Senator changed his vote yesterday. Every entry meticulously documented with dates, locations, and initials of those present. My mother's final insurance policy against the men who controlled her life for so long. When Dana arrives, we spread the evidence across my kitchen table. Her eyes widen as she examines each photograph and journal entry. This explains everything she says. Your father's not fighting for $85,000. He's terrified of what's in this chest. I want to confront him, I say, surprising myself with the steadiness in my voice. Dana studies my face. Are you sure that's wise? I'm not showing him everything, just enough to make him back off. I gather one photograph and close the journal. We'll meet at his office. Public enough that he can't make a scene, private enough for a real conversation. Record everything Dana warns. And call me the second you leave. 2 hours later, I sit in the reception area of Walker & Associates, the photograph burning a hole in my pocket. The firm occupies the 23rd floor of a downtown high-rise, all gleaming surfaces and strategic views of Elliott Bay, my father's domain. His assistant, young blonde, professionally courteous, leads me to his corner office. Gregory stands behind his mahogany desk, his expression carefully neutral. This is unexpected, Nalani. He gestures toward the chair across from him. What can I help you with? I remain standing. I found Mom's journal and photos from Operation Blue Harbor. The change is subtle but unmistakable. His face pales slightly and his hand trembles against the desk before he can control it. I don't know what you're talking about, he says, but his voice has lost its practiced smoothness. I remove the photograph, him and Halbrook standing beside surveillance equipment, and place it on his desk. This isn't about Mom's inheritance, is it? You're not fighting for $85,000. You're trying to hide this. He doesn't touch the photograph, just stares at it like it might bite. You have no idea what you're playing with. Actually, I do. Winter lantern. His head snaps up at the verification code. The mask slips completely, revealing naked fear. Where did you get that? He demands, voice hoarse. Mom documented everything. The surveillance on Senator Gardner's daughter, Jamie Winters' accident, your sudden promotion. I meet his gaze steadily. Drop the case by Friday or I'll request Judge Halbrook's recusal with these as exhibits. Gregory grips the edge of his desk. These materials are classified. You could face federal charges. So, could you for abuse of power and possibly conspiracy to commit murder? I step closer. Mom protected me by documenting everything. Did you really think she'd leave me defenseless against you? A muscle twitches in his jaw. What do you want? Withdraw your challenge to Mom's will. Issue a public apology for questioning her competence. Then we both walk away. He studies me, perhaps seeing for the first time that I'm not the emotional daughter he dismissed in court. I'll need to consult my attorney. You have until Friday. I turn to leave, then pause at the door. Mom always said you were a brilliant strategist. I suggest you use that brilliance now to cut your losses. Back in my car, I release a shaky breath, adrenaline coursing through my veins. I tap the record button on my phone, stopping the audio capture, then call Dana. It's done, I say. You should have heard how his voice changed when I mentioned Winter Lantern. An hour later, Dana listens to the recording in my living room while Ruth Bennett examines the journal entries. You stood your ground perfectly, Dana says when the recording ends. Firm but measured. He knows you're serious. Ruth nods, running her finger down a journal page. Your mother documented everything exactly as I remember it. Classic Miriam, thorough and precise. My phone rings, Colin Mercer calling back after reviewing the photos I'd sent earlier. This matches what I witnessed, the retired major confirms. The surveillance equipment, the verification codes, it's all authentic. I'll testify if needed. After hanging up, I notice a text message from Joyce, a clerk I've known since my first days at the public defender's office. Notice something odd about your case file today. Multiple irregularities in scheduling. Happy to document if useful. Another ally. Another piece falling into place. Mom made sure I'd have everything I needed to fight back, I say, running my hand over the journal's leather cover. She knew they'd come after her things. Dana refills her coffee cup, leaning against my kitchen counter. So what's our next move? Do we push for complete victory now or wait for their response? I think of my father's face when I mentioned winter lantern, the fear behind his eyes, the calculation already beginning. He won't surrender easily, but for the first time since this battle began, we have the advantage. We prepare for every possible counter, I say, feeling a strange calm settle over me. They've spent years building their power. They won't give it up without a fight. Ruth smiles, an expression that reminds me suddenly painfully of my mother. They're not fighting a grieving daughter anymore. They're fighting Miriam Hale's daughter. That's a very different opponent. I nod, feeling the weight of the journal in my hands, my mother's final gift more valuable than any inheritance. The evidence of her quiet courage, her meticulous planning, her determination to protect me even after she was gone. Mom always said justice takes patience, I tell them. Let's show these men exactly what that means. The next day, Dana's office transforms into our command center by late afternoon. The view of Seattle's skyline fades into background scenery as we tape timeline sheets across her glass conference room wall, creating a visual map of Operation Blue Harbor. We need to approach this like prosecutors building a corruption case, not emotional family members, Dana says, uncapping a red marker. She circles a date on our hastily constructed timeline. Judge Halbrook joined the operation exactly 3 months before your father. That's our first connection point. I nod, forcing myself to view the evidence with cold objectivity. My fingers trace across Mom's journal entries, mentally cataloging which details might be classified versus what we can openly present in court. The journal mentions surveillance of Senator Gardner's daughter. I note my voice steady despite the churning in my stomach. That's clearly beyond legal authorization, but how do we prove it without revealing classified information? Ruth Bennett examines each journal page with practiced precision, her silver-framed reading glasses perched on her nose. These verification codes follow standard military protocol for that era. They authenticate your mother's involvement without revealing operational specifics. Dana's phone rings. She glances at the screen and mutes it. Gregory's attorney, 4th call today. Good. Let them worry, I say, surprised by my own detachment. The sharp edge of anger I've carried since the courtroom has transformed into something cooler, more focused. They expect me to act on emotion. That's exactly what we can't do. Ruth nods approvingly. Your mother operated the same way. Methodical, never impulsive. For the next 3 hours, we dissect potential counter-strategies. Dana drafts a comprehensive recusal motion while I compile every irregular ruling Halbrook has made in our case. 8 instances where established precedent was ignored. 11 procedural anomalies that any appellate court would question. If Gregory attempts to claim national security privilege, we counter with this, Dana says, highlighting a paragraph in the Judicial Ethics Handbook. A judge must recuse when personal knowledge of disputed evidentiary facts creates even the appearance of bias. I've transitioned fully into my public defender mindset, the same methodical approach I use when preparing for major felony trials. This isn't just about Mom's things anymore. It's about accountability for men who abuse their positions to intimidate a woman into silence. I need to understand exactly how to frame the recusal motion, I say, pulling up case law on judicial conflicts. The specific language matters if this goes to the Judicial Conduct Commission. By evening, Ruth has identified classified markers in Mom's journal. These notations here, she points to a margin symbol that resembles a small nautical star, indicate materials that went through proper declassification. Smart of your mother. She was building a case that could withstand security scrutiny. Dana spreads multiple legal strategies across the table. We file the ethics complaint as leverage, but keep the probate arguments separate. Two-pronged approach gives us flexibility. Colin Mercer arrives as dusk settles over the city. The retired major brings military precision to our planning, his ramrod posture unchanged by civilian clothes. He reviews the verification codes in Mom's journal, nodding with recognition. Standard authentication protocol from that era, he confirms. The operational notations match what I witnessed. He taps specific entries. These would be admissible without revealing classified details. Ruth makes a call to a former colleague still working in signals intelligence. Her voice drops to professional neutrality as she verifies certain operational dates without mentioning specifics. Another piece of our verification network falls into place. We're building an ironclad case, Dana says, satisfaction evident in her voice, one they can't dismiss or intimidate away. I'm midway through organizing evidence binders when my phone vibrates. Court notification. My stomach tightens as I read the emergency motion filed 30 minutes ago. They're trying to seize the chest, I announce, anger briefly flaring through my careful composure. Gregory filed an emergency motion claiming it's marital property predating their divorce. Halbrook scheduled a hearing for tomorrow morning. Colin's eyebrows rise. That's unusually fast processing. They're accelerating their timeline, Dana says, immediately shifting strategy. They must be more worried than we thought. The familiar burn of indignation rises in my chest. After everything Mom endured, Gregory's affair, the divorce, raising me alone, while he built his career, now he attempts to claim her family heirloom through procedural manipulation. Are they getting desperate enough to make mistakes? I wonder aloud, scanning the rushed legal filing for errors. Dana's smile turns predatory as she spots a critical flaw in their motion. They cited the wrong statute for marital property division. And look, they're requesting the hearing without proper notice period. I feel a curious calm settle over me. This rushed attack reveals their growing fear. They think they can rush us, I say, gathering our carefully organized evidence. That's exactly what we needed. Ruth and Colin exchange knowing glances. In their world of intelligence and military operations, an opponent acting from panic often creates their own downfall. Your mother planned for this, Ruth says quietly. Every document, every verification code, she built this case meticulously, knowing they'd eventually come after her things. I nod, feeling Mom's presence in the careful notes she left behind. Tomorrow we'll face them with the truth she preserved, one careful page at a time. The evidence boxes grow in Dana's office like a fortress wall. Each document, affidavit, and recording creates another layer of protection against what's coming. My fingers trace the edge of my mother's journal, its pages now scanned, copied, and stored in 3 separate locations. Original documents go in the safe deposit box today, Dana says, sliding a USB drive into her leather portfolio. I've prepared the recusal motion with 5 supporting precedents. Judge Halbrook won't be able to dodge the ethics question once we present these. I nod, watching Ruth and Colin huddled over a legal pad at Dana's conference table. They're finalizing their sworn statements about Operation Blue Harbor, their voices low but steady. Colin's military bearing never wavers as he explains verification protocols from that era. We need to be absolutely precise about what we can say without revealing classified information. I remind everyone, rehearsing my own carefully crafted statements. The 3 verification codes are our leverage points. Dana closes her laptop with a decisive click. I've documented 17 procedural irregularities in Halbrook's rulings. The pattern is undeniable once you see it laid out chronologically. My phone buzzes with a reminder to check the recording equipment. We've prepared for every contingency, backup copies, security measures, chain of custody documentation. No victories yet, just meticulous positioning for what's coming. They're rushing because they're scared, Dana says, her voice carrying a note of confidence I haven't heard before. That emergency motion was desperate. It gives us exactly the opening we need. I step back and survey the room. We've transformed Dana's office into a command center for a confrontation that will dwarf my face-to-face meeting with my father. The butterflies in my stomach aren't from uncertainty anymore, but anticipation. The knock at the outer door comes unexpectedly hard, 3 sharp raps that make us all freeze. Dana's receptionist appears in the doorway, her expression apologetic. Mr. Delaney is here to see Miss Walker. He says it's urgent. My father's attorney stands in the reception area, his charcoal suit impeccable, his leather briefcase gleaming under the overhead lights. The smile he offers doesn't reach his eyes. Miss Walker. A word in private. I lead him to a small conference room, leaving the door ajar. My father taught me that much. Never be completely alone with opposing counsel. Your father asked me to convey some concerns, Delaney begins, his voice pitched low. This situation has potential national security implications that could damage many careers, including your own. The threat hangs in the air between us. What exactly are you proposing? I keep my voice neutral, professional. He slides a document across the table. A settlement offer. Your father will withdraw all objections to the inheritance. The townhouse, the money, even the chest. All yours, no questions asked. His finger taps the paper. In exchange, you drop any allegations of judicial misconduct. My pulse quickens, but I don't reach for the document. And if I decline? Delaney adjusts his tie, a gesture so reminiscent of my father that my stomach tightens. Your work as a public defender is admirable. It would be unfortunate if concerns were raised about your fitness for that position. The threat lands with precision. They've been investigating me, gathering intelligence. The cold calculation behind it sends a shiver up my spine. I'll review your offer with counsel, I say, rising from my chair. After Delaney leaves, I call my supervisor at the public defender's office. Better to get ahead of potential intimidation than be blindsided. The conversation is brief but necessary, another protective measure in place. Back in Dana's office, Ruth studies my face. They're getting desperate, she says. The settlement offer sits on Dana's desk, its terms both tempting and troubling. I could walk away with everything my mother left me. My career would remain intact. My life would return to normal. Is justice worth risking my career over? The question slips out before I can stop it. Dana doesn't answer immediately. None of them do. The silence stretches as I face the question that's been lurking beneath the surface all along. Finally, I pull my mother's journal toward me, running my fingers over her neat handwriting. The answer is there in her meticulous notes, her careful documentation, her years of quiet preparation. Hours later, with dusk settling outside the windows, the final preparations are complete. Every document organized, every argument rehearsed. Dana closes the last file folder with a satisfied nod. We've anticipated every legal counter they might try, she says. Tomorrow's hearing won't go the way they expect. Ruth squeezes my shoulder, her eyes bright with something that looks like pride. Your mother would be proud of how you've handled this, she says quietly. Colin stands by the window, his military bearing unchanged despite the long day. The verification codes will be enough, he assures me. They'll understand the implications immediately. I gather my notes, feeling a strange calm settle over me. The transformation surprises me. Where once was anger and uncertainty, now exists clarity and purpose. Tomorrow's emergency hearing looms not as a threat but as an opportunity. The final pieces are in place. My mother's voice seems to whisper from the pages of her journal. Sometimes the most important battles are won before they're fought. The next morning, Judge Halbrook's courtroom fills with the low hum of whispers as I take my seat beside Dana. The emergency hearing was scheduled with barely 24 hours' notice, another of my father's tactics to keep us off balance, but this time we came prepared. All rise, the bailiff announces as Judge Halbrook enters, his wire-rimmed glasses catching the fluorescent light. What stops me cold isn't Halbrook's practiced judicial expression, but the unfamiliar face at my father's table. Beside Gregory sits a tall, silver-haired man with the polished appearance of Washington, D.C. power brokers I've seen testifying before congressional committees. Who's that? I whisper to Dana. Jackson Weaver, she murmurs back, her eyebrows drawing together. Former DOJ attorney, now specializes in national security cases. My stomach tightens. This escalation means our pressure is working, but it also means they're desperate enough to try something drastic. Judge Halbrook calls the court to order with a tap of his gavel. We're here regarding the estate of Miriam Hale. I understand the petitioner has filed an emergency motion. Jackson Weaver rises with deliberate slowness. His voice carries the confident cadence of a man accustomed to commanding attention in far more intimidating rooms than this county courthouse. Your Honor, I represent Gregory Walker in this matter. We filed a motion requesting all possessions of the deceased Miriam Hale be placed in government custody pending review. He pauses, letting the words land with calculated weight. Mrs. Hale was involved in sensitive government operations during her service, and we have reason to believe she may have retained classified materials in violation of her security oaths. The courtroom falls silent. I feel the blood drain from my face as Weaver continues. These security obligations continue beyond death, Your Honor. We're asking the court to recognize the serious national security implications here. My father sits perfectly still beside Weaver, hands folded on the table. But I catch the slight twitch at the corner of his mouth, the same tell he had when bluffing during the rare family poker games of my childhood. Judge Halbrook nods gravely. The court certainly must consider national security implications. Miss Ortiz, how does your client respond? Dana stands, her posture relaxed but authoritative. She doesn't rush to speak, letting the tension build as she arranges her notes. Before addressing these new claims, Your Honor, we have a motion for recusal. A ripple of murmurs sweeps through the courtroom. Halbrook's fingers tighten almost imperceptibly around his pen. Recusal, he repeats, his judicial mask slipping just enough to reveal genuine surprise. On what grounds? Conflict of interest, Your Honor. Dana's voice remains steady as she places a manila folder on the bench. We have documentation indicating both Judge Halbrook and Mr. Walker served together as legal advisors on Operation Blue Harbor in the late 1990 seconds, the very operation now being referenced in these sudden national security claims. Halbrook's face hardens as he glances at the folder. Miss Ortiz, these proceedings concern a straightforward probate matter. They did, Dana agrees, until Mr. Walker's counsel raised national security concerns about Operation Blue Harbor, an operation that directly involved Your Honor. My father leans forward to whisper urgently to Weaver, who gives a barely perceptible shake of his head. These claims appear only after our investigation into irregular rulings in this case, Dana continues. We request you review this evidence in chambers immediately. The courtroom door opens quietly and I don't need to turn around to know who has entered. We timed Colin Mercer's arrival perfectly, his military dress uniform, creating an immediate visual counterweight to Weaver's power suit. Judge Halbrook's eyes flick to Colin, then back to the folder Dana has placed before him. The calculated confidence that has characterized his previous rulings wavers visibly. Your Honor, Weaver interjects, these claims are merely attempts to delay proceedings regarding sensitive materials that must be secured. Actually, Dana counters, we have Ruth Bennett present, a former signals intelligence specialist who worked with Mrs. Hale. She's prepared to testify about proper handling of classified information and about verification codes for Operation Blue Harbor. I watch my father's face carefully. The mention of verification codes causes a flash of genuine fear in his eyes that he quickly suppresses. Judge Halbrook's complexion has taken on an ashen quality. The court will take a brief recess to review these materials in chambers, Halbrook announces abruptly. Counsel for both parties, please join me. As they gather their materials, Dana squeezes my hand. Stay strong, she whispers. Remember everything we prepared. I nod, watching my father straighten his tie with fingers that aren't quite steady. He refuses to meet my eyes as he follows Weaver and Dana toward the judge's chambers. The courtroom buzzes with speculation as the door closes behind them. Colin Mercer makes his way to the seat beside me, his military bearing drawing curious glances. How are you holding up? He asks quietly. I keep thinking about Mom, I admit, how methodical she was in documenting everything. She knew this day might come. Your mother was always 10 steps ahead, Colin says with a sad smile. Even when we served together, she could anticipate problems before they materialized. Across the aisle, I notice Gregory's tie has come loose, his usual impeccable appearance beginning to fray. He's consulting frantically with an associate, their heads bent close together over a legal pad. The minutes stretch into nearly an hour. When a young woman approaches from another law firm to whisper something to Gregory, he blanches visibly. What's happening? I ask Dana when she finally emerges from chambers. She sits beside me, her expression carefully composed, but with a gleam of satisfaction in her eyes. They can't bury this now, she whispers. Too many people are watching. Judge Halbrook knows exactly what's in that evidence. The bailiff calls the court to order as Judge Halbrook returns to the bench. His earlier confidence has vanished, completely replaced by a rigid formality that barely masks his discomfort. When the judge is back, the courtroom falls silent as everyone leans forward slightly, sensing the unprecedented nature of what's unfolding. Judge Halbrook re-enters the courtroom, his normally confident stride reduced to measured steps. His face appears ashen, drained of its usual authority. The evidence reviewed in chambers has clearly shaken him. A hushed anticipation falls over the courtroom as he settles behind the bench, straightening papers that don't need straightening, adjusting his robe with trembling fingers. Before proceeding with the matter of Miriam Hale's estate, he begins voice-pitched slightly higher than normal. I need to address the motion for recusal submitted by the respondent's counsel. My heart pounds against my ribs. Dana's hand finds my knee under the table, a silent reminder to maintain composure. While I see no direct conflict of interest that would necessitate my removal from this case, Halbrook continues, the words coming too quickly. I will consider the documentation provided and issue a formal... I stand, cutting him off. The courtroom blurs around me as I focus entirely on Halbrook's face. Winter Lantern. Blue Harbor. 4 words. Just 4 words spoken clearly enough to carry throughout the silent courtroom. The effect is immediate. Gregory lurches halfway out of his seat, knuckles white against the polished table. His attorney Jackson Weaver grabs his arm, whispering urgently. But my father's eyes, wide with panic, remain locked on me. Judge Halbrook freezes at the bench. His gavel, raised slightly as if to silence me, hangs suspended in the air. The knuckles of his hand turn bone white with pressure. Your Honor, I continue, my voice steady despite the thundering in my chest. My mother documented everything about Operation Blue Harbor, the surveillance operations, the targeting of Senator Gardner's daughter, the accident involving Jamie Winters. The courtroom remains deathly silent. Several attorneys in the gallery exchange confused glances, sensing something significant unfolding, without understanding its nature. Miss Walker Halbrook says, his voice barely audible, this hearing concerns probate matters not. Not what, Your Honor? Not the abuse of military intelligence capabilities for personal gain, not the manipulation of judicial assignments to ensure favorable outcomes. I reach for the folder Dana prepared. I'm prepared to submit this evidence to the Judicial Ethics Committee unless this matter is resolved appropriately. Colin Mercer rises from his seat in the gallery, his military decorations catching the fluorescent light. His presence commands attention as he steps forward. As a commissioned officer present during Operation Blue Harbor, he states, voice carrying the weight of his rank, I can verify the authenticity of these documents. Court personnel have stopped pretending to work. Lawyers from other cases linger near the doors. The public nature of this confrontation, carefully orchestrated, creates accountability that no private meeting could achieve. We don't seek to harm national security, I say, softening my tone slightly. We seek justice. For my mother, for Jamie Winters, for everyone affected by what happened. Halbrook stares at the bench for 30 long seconds. When he looks up, his shoulders slump with defeat. This court will grant the motion for recusal, he announces, voice hollow. The case of estate of Miriam Hale will be reassigned to. He pauses, consulting a document with unusual care. Judge Lila Fernandez. Court is adjourned until reassignment is complete. The gavel falls with a finality that reverberates through the room. Joyce, the court clerk, looks up from her computer with undisguised surprise. In 5 years of appearing before Halbrook, I've never seen him recuse himself from anything. Your Honor, Gregory's attorney says quickly, we request an immediate recess to reassess our position in light of this development. Granted, Halbrook mutters, already gathering his papers and retreating toward chambers. The courtroom erupts in hushed conversations. Dana squeezes my arm, her smile barely contained. Perfect, she whispers. Absolutely perfect. During the recess, Gregory approaches me in the hallway. His tailored suit no longer projects power, but seems to hang from his frame. For the first time in my adult life, my father looks smaller than me. You have no idea what you're doing, he hisses, voice low enough that only I can hear. I meet his gaze steadily. I know exactly what I'm doing. Drop the case. Issue a public apology for questioning Mom's competence. This goes no further. Gregory's jaw tightens. Those records were classified. Mom declassified what mattered. The rest stays buried unless you force my hand. I step closer. You have until the new judge reviews this case to decide. She won't be as accommodating as your old friend Evan. He stalks away without another word, phone already pressed to his ear. Dana watches him go. He'll fold. They always do when the power shifts. The afternoon unfolds with dizzying speed. Within 2 hours, Gregory's legal team files a notice of voluntary dismissal. The new judge, Lila Fernandez, calls an immediate status conference. Judge Fernandez scans the case history with narrowed eyes. Her reading glasses perch low on her nose as she flips through months of motions and continuances. I see numerous procedural irregularities in how this case has progressed, she notes, looking up sharply. Multiple continuances without substantial justification. Repeated challenges to medical evidence that appears conclusive. She turns a page with deliberate care. The court finds Miriam Hale was of sound mind when executing her will. The challenges to her testamentary capacity are dismissed with prejudice. Gregory sits stiffly beside his attorney, his expression carefully blank. The fight is drained from him completely. Furthermore, Judge Fernandez continues, I note for the record that Judge Halbrook has formally recused himself from all matters related to either party. The court will be reviewing his prior rulings in this case for consistency with judicial standards. She fixes Gregory with a pointed stare. Does the petitioner wish to make a statement for the record? Gregory stands slowly. I withdraw any suggestion that my former wife was impaired at the time she executed her will. I apologize for any distress this proceeding may have caused my daughter. The words sound hollow, but their impact is profound. After 8 months of fighting, my mother's wishes will be honored. Her modest savings, the Tacoma townhouse, and most importantly, the oak chest with its secrets and memories, all will remain exactly where she intended. As we leave the courthouse, Dana cannot contain her grin. Your mother built the perfect case from beyond the grave. 4 words, Nalani. 4 words brought down a judge and a senior partner at one of Seattle's most prestigious firms. Ruth and Colin wait at the bottom of the courthouse steps, their presence, a reminder of all the pieces that had to align for this victory. I've filed an internal report about the previous hearings, Joyce, the court clerk murmurs as she passes us. It wasn't right what they tried to do. A reporter from the local legal newspaper approaches notebook in hand. Miss Walker, I'd like to ask about today's unusual resolution. It's not often we see a judge recuse mid-hearing followed by such a quick dismissal. I consider my words carefully. This was about honoring my mother's wishes. I reply, my voice steady. Nothing more. As we walk toward the parking lot, I feel my mother's presence alongside me, not as a ghost or spirit, but in the strength she built in me, in the evidence she meticulously preserved, in the allies she quietly cultivated. She knew this day might come. She prepared for it with the same quiet determination that defined her life after my father left. 4 simple words. Winter lantern. Blue Harbor restored the balance of justice that powerful men had tilted in their favor for decades. Not through dramatic public exposure, but through the strategic application of truth at precisely the right moment. Mom would be proud. 6 months after Judge Halbrook's dramatic recusal, I stand in my mother's townhouse now, my townhouse, gazing at her photo on the mantel. The morning light filters through lace curtains, casting gentle shadows across her smiling face. Gregory's firm completed their internal review yesterday, Dana says, setting her coffee mug on the kitchen counter. 3 senior partners voted to remove him from partnership, effective immediately. I absorbed this information with unexpected calmness. And Halbrook, still on extended medical leave. The Judicial Conduct Committee investigation continues. Dana tucks a strand of hair behind her ear. 4 other attorneys have come forward with similar experiences in his courtroom. Your case broke the dam. The doorbell rings. Ruth Bennett stands on the porch holding a potted orchid with delicate white blooms. Thought your mother would approve, she says, handing me the plant. Miriam always said flowers belong in homes where secrets don't have to hide anymore. Ruth follows me to the living room where the oak chest now sits proudly by the window. No longer a vessel of secrets, it displays framed family photos. My mother as a young signals analyst, her library colleagues gathered at her retirement party, and us together at my law school graduation. Colin called yesterday, Ruth says, touching the frame of my mother's military portrait. He's testifying next week at the closed-door hearing about Operation Blue Harbor. Limited scope focused only on procedural violations. Just enough truth to matter, I reply, echoing my mother's words found in her journal. My phone buzzes with a text from my supervisor at the Public Defender's Office Bar Association panel on judicial accountability confirmed for next month. You're the keynote. The invitation arrived 3 weeks ago, a direct result of how we handled my mother's case. Not with explosive revelations that might have compromised national security, but with precise application of pressure at exactly the right moment. Did you ever imagine this 6 months ago, Dana asks, gesturing around the cozy living room where scattered legal pads contain notes for my upcoming presentation on ethical boundaries in the judiciary. I consider the question. 6 months ago, I sat in courtroom 4B watching my father and Judge Halbrook manipulate the system. Now I sleep peacefully in my mother's home, her case having sparked a quiet revolution in local legal circles. I've been mentoring 2 junior attorneys who encountered similar situations, I tell them, teaching them how to document patterns, build proper motions, create strategic leverage. Ruth smiles. Your mother would be proud, not just of what you accomplished, but how you did it. Later that afternoon, I drive to my office where a new case awaits, a young defendant facing a judge with undisclosed business connections to the prosecution's key witness. 6 months ago, I might have raged against the unfairness. Today, I methodically document every instance of bias, compile relevant precedents, and prepare a focused recusal motion. My colleague James pokes his head into my office. How are you approaching the Franklin case? Judge Mercer seems determined to rush it through. With patience and preparation, I reply, showing him my organized binder. Sometimes justice requires knowing exactly when to act, not just what evidence to present. The change in me runs deeper than professional strategy. Last week I had coffee with my father for the first time since the hearing. No reconciliation, but a civil conversation about neutral topics. His partnership gone, his reputation diminished. Gregory seemed smaller somehow. The man who once loomed so large in my nightmares now appeared ordinary, even slightly pathetic. I've established the Miriam Hale Integrity Fund. I tell Dana when she visits my office later that week, $35,000 from Mom's savings dedicated to supporting victims of judicial misconduct. Dana's eyes widen. That's a significant portion of your inheritance. The money matters less than what it represents, I explain. Already, the fund has helped 3 individuals document patterns of misconduct in family court cases. We stand at my office window overlooking the courthouse where it all began. In the distance, the flags flutter against the autumn sky, their shadows dancing across the granite steps. I'm working with Seattle University Law to develop a practicum on ethical boundaries. I continue, using Mom's methodical approach to documentation as a teaching model. On Sunday morning, I visit my mother's grave, placing fresh daisies against her headstone. The cemetery is quiet except for distant traffic and birds rustling in the maple trees. You taught me that sometimes the most powerful words are the ones you save until exactly the right moment, I whisper, tracing the engraved letters of her name. 3 words brought down 2 powerful men, because you prepared me to use them wisely. As I walk back to my car, the weight of the past year settles into something resembling peace. Justice isn't always about revealing everything. Sometimes it's about knowing precisely when and how to use the truth. The oak chest waiting at home no longer holds secrets but possibilities. Much like the legacy my mother built, piece by careful piece, for the daughter who would one day need to stand firm against the men who thought themselves beyond accountability. I start my car, ready to continue the work she began. The Miriam Hale Integrity Fund has already received 3 new applications this week. With each case, we support my mother's methodical approach to justice, spreads further into a system that desperately needs it. Sometimes the most enduring victory isn't won with dramatic confrontations, but with patient, strategic truth preserved, protected, and deployed at exactly the right moment.